This is the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, and today I'm going to give you some tips on how to optimize your e-commerce remarketing. Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've overachieved all of the things that you've set out to and are wondering what to do next, or how do I even make this better? I know that you're going to love today's episode. If you're stuck in a rut, feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've achieved all of the things that you set out to and are wondering what next, or how do I even make this better, then I know that you're going to love today's episode. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Before we jump in, I have to tell you this story, and I've been talking about it in our Facebook group, the Retail Academy, and also over on Facebook and Instagram. It's this concept of skinny mirrors. Do you believe in them? I've been in the retail trade for a long time, and I can't say I have ever seen a catalogue where you're buying shop fittings and one of the options was skinny mirrors. However, I've been in stores where I know that I don't look like what's looking back at me in the mirror. I'm not trying to be self-deprecating, but I went to some shops on the weekend. No, last week. I went to some shops on, I think it was maybe Friday last week, because I need a frock for a speaking gig. And if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I've lost a bit of weight and I don't actually have an awful lot in my wardrobe that fits. So, contrary to what you might think, I actually don't enjoy shopping. But I knew I needed to find a couple of outfits, one for a dinner and one for the presentation. So off I went to the local shopping mall to go through shopping hell. Nobody helps you. You can never find what you're looking for. And the lighting is always terribly unflattering. Are you with me on this? Yeah? I'm yet to come to a store where I feel really good when I'm in a change room. However, I did find a dress. And when I picked it up, I was picking it up out of desperation rather than because I really, really liked it. And I thought there is no way that that is going to fit me. However, I put it on and I looked pretty good in it. In fact, I looked so good, I actually took a picture in the mirror and sent it to my husband. Now that picture ended up on social media as well, because not to brag about how great I think I looked, but to talk about this concept of skinny mirrors. And whether they're a thing or not, I'm not sure. Maybe you can tell me whether you think that they actually exist. But what it did highlight was that if you make your customers feel great when they're having a shopping experience, they're likely to come back. Now, the funny thing is, I didn't actually buy that dress. Why? Because at the time, I wasn't quite sure how it would look outside of the dressing room environment. The dressing room was actually quite dark, so I couldn't get a really good overview of what the dress looked like, and the dressing room was really, really cramped. However, so many people have commented on that dress. I'm going to head back this afternoon and see if it's still there, because, of course, it was the last one and I should have just bought it if I really wanted it. But I'm a firm believer of the universe gives you what you need. So if it's not there, another great dress will be. But back to the shopping experience. Last week, I gave a bit of an intro onto retargeting, which we also call remarketing, where you actually put your message or put your products back in front of people who have either visited your website or visited you in store. So last week's was a bit of an intro, and if you're not sure how the whole thing works, then make sure you listen to that episode first. However, if you have already been doing a bit of retargeting and remarketing, then you are going to love today's episode, because in this episode, I'm going to give you 6 tips to optimize your e-commerce remarketing. Oh, and just quickly before I jump into those 6 tips, if you want to come and join me at Inside Retail Live, there are over 50 speakers and it's over 2 days down in Melbourne in Australia. There's actually a whole week, Inside Retail Week, But the actual live event goes for 2 days, the 26th and the 27th. And if you'd like to come along and join me, you can use the code SK25 to get 25% off your tickets. Okay, 6 tips to optimize your e-commerce remarketing. And I'm just going to, I'm like totally left-brained, right? I just love dot points and numbers. So I'm going to work my way through them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and hopefully they will help you make loads of extra money and personalize the shopping experience, because actually that's what it's all about, and making money. The first one is to understand where your customer is at in the buying journey. Now, the reason this one is so important is because you have to appreciate that if someone has never seen your business before, they need to see a different message to a person who's been to your website before or who has been to your store before. Let's just call it interacted with your brand, okay? So the person who has never interacted with your brand before, knows nothing about you, needs a different image and a different message to somebody who has. And the somebody who has is a completely different message to a customer who's already bought from you before. Does that make sense? So to simplify this down, we're just saying 3 touch points. There are actually a lot more in there, but just to simplify it for today, 3 touch points. People who've never seen your brand before, people who have interacted with your brand before, and people who have purchased from you before. So somebody who has never heard of your brand before, they're going to need a little bit more information about you. They're going to need a little bit more to decide to click through from an ad to either visit your website or to come into your store. So those people, you might show a range of products that show what your store is about. Or you could do an information type ad, and video ads are great for this. You could do an informative ad that talks about what it is you sell and why you sell it. But the aim at this touch point is to just build some trust, to show them what it is you do, what it is you sell, and why they might like to buy from you. Now, if someone has been to your website but hasn't purchased, your copy would be a little bit more familiar. You might be showing pictures from categories that they've browsed in, so doing some dynamic product ads, or you might do a little bit more information, especially if you have a really strong brand message. So you might be talking about, I'm just thinking of something like Tom's shoes. So if somebody's been to your website, you might talk a little bit more about how when they buy from you, you're also giving back to the community or giving back to a specific disadvantaged group. That's going to push them along their buying journey. So the idea is that you have a train, if you can think of it this way, a train of ads that actually move people along the buying journey. So the first one is to build that know, so know, like, and trust. So to build that know, they know about you and they understand what you do and what it is you sell. And then in that second part, when they've been to the website, you're building up a little bit of like and trust. So you want people to feel confident about buying from you. But a lot of times, retail and e-commerce store owners forget about the third part, which is the people who've already bought from you. And those people, they should be reminded to come back again. Yeah, they've already bought from you. Show them some love. And the great thing is when you segment out your list and you actually have these different audiences, then you can show different messages to different people. And just think about somebody who has already purchased from you. Instead of just showing them more products, maybe you could think about showing them a cross-sell or an upsell. So if they bought, for example, some shampoo, you might want to show them a hair treatment from the same brand. And the fun thing is you can actually do this if you've connected your product catalog to Facebook ads. And I'm basically talking about Facebook and Instagram ads here. But you can also do this with Google and Pinterest and all the other things. But I like to hang out in Facebook ads and Instagram ads. So that's what I'm going to be sort of referring to mostly here today. So tip number 1 is to understand where your customer is at in the buying journey. Now, tip number 2 is to have parameters. We've got to have boundaries, right? Parameters is a little bit more of a technical term. But what I'm saying is only show ads for a specific amount of time. So you have these parameters as to how long a customer will view an ad. So looking back at your customer journey, and if you haven't mapped this out, I really do recommend that you do so. So map out your customer journey and look at how long on average does a customer take to get from point A to point B to point C. And let's just go back to the first tip, which was how long does it take on average for them to see your ad and click through to your website or to come into store? And then how long from once they've been in store or to the website does it take for them to purchase? How many add to carts do they have? How many views do they have before they go ahead and purchase? And then once they've purchased, how long is it before they come back again and buy from you? And the great thing is Klaviyo will actually do a lot of this for you. There's an awesome section called Predictive Analytics, and if you aren't using that, I highly recommend it. It's all built in. It's not a pro feature or anything like that, but you can actually see this exact customer journey mapped out on the screen for you. So having those parameters at each step means that you are personalizing the advertising journey. So when you understand where your customer is at, the first tip, the customer who doesn't know about your brand, how many times are they going to have to see your ad before they move to the next part? And so that's really important, because if they've already been to your website, they shouldn't still be seeing those information come to our website type ads. And the great thing is you can do all this inside of rules. So you can do if this, then that inside of your Facebook ad rules. So if somebody has been to your website after being in that first section of the buying ads journey, then they stop seeing that ad and they move into the next section. They move up on the rungs of the ladder. Does this make sense for you? Hopefully it does. So you have these rules or parameters about what customers are going to see when it comes to advertising based on that journey. And you have to set this up for the most part. It's not necessarily intuitive. But if you're already doing some retargeting or remarketing, then these are things that we're talking about today to actually optimize what you're doing. Tip number 3. So tip number 1 was understand where your customer is at in the buying journey. And tip number 2 is to set parameters up around those areas of the customer buying journey. Tip number 3 is, this is a little bit of a sneaky one, and it's one of my favorites. It's give customers the option to opt in or to create an account when they get to the checkout page using social login. And social login is when you go to a website and you see login using Facebook, login using Twitter, login using LinkedIn. So if you know which one of those your customer hangs out most on, if it's Facebook, choose the Facebook, or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter, whatever it is, when you're collecting the data, it means that you are actually getting the same email address that they use to log into their socials. And this is really important because the Facebook pixel and most pixels use a customer's email address to help identify them. So if you want that audience to match up as much as possible. So if you have people using their work email address versus their personal email address because they're getting something shipped to their office, then they're not going to line up. Now you can sometimes grab those people in other ways, in the sense that you can use the data that comes from the Facebook pixel, but when it comes to matching up your email list to customers and to create lookalike audiences, Facebook uses the customer's email address. So we want to get the email address that they're using to log in to their socials. Awesome, right? Okay, tip number 4 is frequency. And if you aren't looking at frequency, this is really important because nobody wants to see the same ad forever. And it is really easy to automate turning ads off after they've been seen a set amount of time. And you do this using rules. If you're not using rules, I really suggest that you hop in and have a look at all the things that you can do. So frequency is the average amount of time that a customer is going to see your ads. We like to keep that at around 4, but that is just a rule of thumb. If we're looking at retargeting people who've added to cart, that number can be a lot higher because customers are still deciding. And we've seen people taking 9 or 10 clicks before they go ahead and purchase. So understanding, again, it all comes back out to mapping the customer journey out, understanding what that looks like, but also changing ads out. So you can target people for 9 views, for example, but it doesn't have to be the same ad. So what you can do is, using your rules, you can say when a frequency hits a certain amount, turn this ad set off, and then they move into another ad set. All of this is about personalizing the advertising experience. And when you do this right, Facebook rewards you. All of the platforms reward you because they know that customers want to see what's important to them, which means your advertising costs are going to go down. Yay! Okay, tip number 5. Don't make it all about product. But what? I'm an e-commerce store. Of course it's about the product. The thing is, you can do other things that are actually a lot cheaper. So an actual conversion or a traffic ad can be quite costly, especially if you're in those really popular niches like skincare, fashion, homewares. So you've got to think outside the box. Think about using things like reviews. Reviews are always great. So even though it's still product related, it's not just sticking a product in somebody's Facebook feed or inside their Instagram feed. If you actually put a review in, it's giving you that social proof, but it's also something different. But think also about things like blog content. So you could have that same review, but you could have it over on your Shopify blog or your WordPress blog, wherever you've got it, and you're driving customers to your website. Now, I love to get people to my website because it means that they can browse. However, you've probably noticed this yourself, Facebook doesn't actually send them off, and Instagram is the same, doesn't actually send them off platform these days. It kind of opens up your website inside a little mini window because Facebook doesn't want to lose their customers. So the exact same reason you want those people over your website is the exact same reason why Facebook is now not letting them leave the website. So there's a good and the bad, but they can still browse once they've been there, but they're still inside of Facebook. And the other thing that I love to do is to use videos. We all know how videos are just blowing up on social media. I mean, if you heard me about the Pinterest ad and it took my 500 views to buy the cloud bed for Cav, you will know that video grabs attention. And Facebook is rewarding videos. In fact, Facebook's making it so easy to make videos that you can actually just upload some images and it will turn it into a video for you. So if you don't feel comfortable or you don't have a software to do that, you can actually play around inside of the Facebook Ads Manager or Business Manager, and it will do it all for you. So don't make your ads all about the product. Try remarketing using different types of content. So that was tip number 5, which leads me on to tip number 6. And this one is super easy, so I'm really not sure why more people aren't doing it. But tip number 6 is to leverage email list segments. So if you're using an email service provider that actually links into Facebook, like our favorite, Klaviyo, ActiveCampaign does the same thing, you can actually create Facebook audiences for each list. So this means that your ad costs are going to go way down because your audience is going to be much smaller. So remember right back at the beginning, I said, show something different to the people who've been to your website. If you've captured an email address, then you know that you can start showing them things about whatever it was that you offered in that pop-up. So just having these list segments means that your ad costs are going to go way down because the audience is smaller, but your engagement is going to go way up, which means Facebook is going to reward you because it can see that people want to click on what you're advertising. So when would you use this? Well, lots of brands, and again, this is one of my sneaky little tactics, lots of brands that I work with don't like having sales, but we all know that clearing out stock is an important fiscal decision that has to be made. Like, you can't just hold on to this stuff. Every day that you hold on to stuff that's not moving is costing you money. So if you have an email list segment of people who you know pretty much only ever click on an email when you're having a sale. Haha, sneaky. You could actually show ads for sale products only to that list segment. So again, as I mentioned, this means your costs are going to be low because it's a small segment, but your conversions are likely to be super high because you are personalizing the ad experience, but also in this case, you're keeping your brand reputation intact. So the people who love a sale are rewarded because they get the email because you've segmented your list, and then they see the ad. And they're likely to convert at a much higher rate because you know that they're sales junkies. I have brands like that. I have brands where I would never pay full price, but the minute that they go on sale, I am there. So if I was seeing those ads, I would be pretty impressed. But the best part is, nobody knows what other people are seeing. So you keep your brand reputation intact because your high spending customers, your customer royalty, the one who don't want to feel really annoyed that the thing that they just bought is now on sale, they're not going to see your ad. Haha, how good is that? So leveraging your email list segments to personalize the ad experience and show your customers the products and the messages that they need to hear at the exact right time is overall going to bring down your customer acquisition cost, but at the same time, it's going to increase your customer conversions. And I don't know about you, but that's a win-win for me. So let's quickly recap those 6 tips to optimize your e-commerce remarketing. Number 1 is just understanding where your customer is at in the buying journey. Number 2 is to set up those parameters, those boundaries, and make sure that you're showing those ads to the right people at the right time. Number 3 is using social logins when people are on your website to create an account. Then next up was frequency. No one wants to see the same ad forever, so make sure that you have several different ads for each campaign. Number 5, try different options other than just showing customers products like reviews and blog content. And number 6, leverage email list segments. I hope those tips have been super helpful for you. And if you want some more help on recovering lost sales, both in-store and online, make sure you head over to selinaknight.com/shop and check out my Recovering Lost Sales workbook, plus a whole bunch of other workbooks and cheat sheets and mini courses that you can use to scale your retail or e-commerce business. I'm heading off to the Inside Retail live event next week, and I'm going to be doing some interviews while I'm down there. So stay tuned for some e-commerce and retail experts giving you their takes on what's working right now, both online and in-store. Have a great week. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selinaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selinaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.